Imagine a machine that costs $400 million. It's the size of a double-decker bus. It requires 3 Boeing 747s to move, and it is the only piece of technology on the planet capable of carving the brains of modern civilization. Now imagine you're the second largest economy on Earth, and you are forbidden from owning one. To Washington, this machine is a strategic weapon. To Beijing, it is the ultimate bottleneck. But to the global economy, it's a trillion-dollar fuse that just lit a fire under the most dangerous tech war in history. For years, the United States thought China had them in a chokehold. They leveraged a quiet Dutch monopoly called ASML to ensure that China stayed in the digital Stone Age. They wanted to turn China's multi-billion-dollar semiconductor ambitions into a pile of expensive, useless paperweights. But they made a fatal mistake. They forgot that when you back a cornered tiger into a wall, it doesn't just die, it evolves. China isn't just trying to buy the future anymore. They are deconstructing it, piece by piece, in a desperate, high-stakes heist to build their own light. This isn't just about microchips. It's about the collapse of the American tech hegemony and the birth of a new, invisible empire. The rules of the game have changed. The monopoly is under siege, and the price of losing is total irrelevance.
In a world obsessed with the brands that scream for attention, we look for the giants that stay silent. We reveal the invisible threads of power moving the global economy right under your nose. This is History of Power.
In 1984, the world's most powerful monopoly didn't exist. ASML was nothing more than a desperate gamble, a leaky, underfunded joint venture between the Dutch giant Philips and a small chip machine maker called ASM International. They started in a leaky shed next to a Philips office in Eindhoven. At the time, they were losing money, losing talent, and losing the market to Japanese titans like Nikon and Canon. But Washington, D.C. was watching, and they saw something the market didn't. The U.S. Department of Energy had spent billions researching a breakthrough, extreme ultraviolet lithography, or EUV. They knew that whoever controlled this soft X-ray technology would control the future of computing. But they also knew that if they gave it to a domestic giant like Intel or IBM, it would be tied up in antitrust lawsuits for decades. They needed a neutral proxy, a vessel they could control through export licenses, but that appeared to be part of the free market.
In the late 90s, the pact was sealed. The U.S. allowed ASML to acquire the American company Silicon Valley Group and gave them access to the crown jewels of U.S. national laboratories. In exchange, ASML became the Western firewall. This wasn't a business deal, it was a geopolitical coronation. To ensure no one else could ever compete, the financial stakes were raised to suicidal levels. Intel, TSMC, and Samsung, the 3 biggest chip makers on Earth, were forced to become partners. In 2012 alone, they injected billions of dollars into ASML's R&D just to keep the project alive. The result? A financial moat so deep and so expensive that it killed every other competitor on the planet. By the time the first EUV machine was ready, ASML was the only company left standing. They didn't just win the market, they annihilated it. August 2023, while the U.S. Commerce Department was visiting Beijing to set boundaries, Huawei did something that wasn't supposed to be possible. They didn't hold a keynote, they didn't buy a Super Bowl ad. They simply dropped the Mate 60 Pro on their website and let the world do the math. Inside was the Kirin 9000S, a 7-nanometer processor manufactured in China by SMIC. The reaction in Washington wasn't just shock, it was panic. For 3 years, the narrative was that without ASML's EUV machines, China was stuck in the technological Stone Age. They were supposed to be frozen at 14 nanometers, but the Kirin chip was a loud, clear message. The sanctions didn't work. How did they do it? They committed financial insurgency. SMIC didn't have the God machine, so they weaponized their older DUV equipment. They used a technique called multi-patterning. Imagine trying to draw a microscopic line with a blunt marker. To get it right, you have to draw it over and over again, perfectly aligned, until the line is thin enough. Is it efficient? No. Is it profitable for a private company? Absolutely not. The yield, the percentage of usable chips, was rumored to be below 50%. In a free market, that's a bankruptcy sentence. But China isn't playing by free market rules. The Chinese government injected an estimated $150 billion into their big fund to absorb the losses. They aren't buying profit, they are buying sovereignty. By the time the US realized what was happening, the forbidden chips were already in the hands of millions. China didn't just break the wall, they built a tunnel right under it while the gatekeepers were sleeping.
You don't build an ASML machine by reading a manual. You build it by performing a technological autopsy. When the US slammed the door on China, Beijing didn't just sit in the dark. They turned their laboratories into shadow factories. They took the older DUV machines they already owned, machines worth tens of millions, and they did the unthinkable. They took them apart, bolt by bolt, sensor by sensor. This is the reverse engineering heist. But China realized early on that having the body of the machine wasn't enough. They needed the DNA. In 2023, ASML admitted to a massive security breach. A former employee in China had stolen data related to their proprietary lithography technology. This wasn't a random hack. It was a surgical extraction of trade secrets that cost decades and billions of dollars to develop. In the world of history of power, why spend 30 years on R&D when you can buy a flash drive for the price of a bribe? But the real heist isn't just about data, it's about human capital. While Washington was busy writing sanctions, Beijing was busy writing checks. They launched a global headhunting campaign targeting the brains of Eindhoven. They offered ASML engineers triple their salaries, luxury housing, and the chance to build a national legacy in Shanghai. They aren't just stealing parts, they are stealing the entire ecosystem. Every time an engineer defects, every time a blueprint is leaked, the impenetrable moat around ASML gets shallower. China is burning through cash at an astronomical rate, subsidizing every failed attempt, every broken lens, and every corrupted line of code. They aren't looking for a return on investment today. They are looking to bankrupt the Western monopoly tomorrow. They have the machines, they have the data, they have the people. The autopsy is over. Now the patient is waking up with a different flag.
Is the technology inferior?
Today, yes.
But here is the financial reality. China is the world's largest market for semiconductors. If Beijing mandates that every Chinese factory must use SME machines, ASML loses 1/3 of its global revenue overnight. SME doesn't need to be better than ASML to win. It just needs to be available. While the West protects its intellectual property, China is building industrial reality. They are creating a world where the Dutch-American pact is irrelevant because the supply chain no longer passes through Europe. These are the ghost machines, invisible to the global market today, but destined to haunt the balance sheets of every Western tech giant tomorrow.
Washington thought they could play a one-sided game. They assumed that by cutting off the brain, the lithography, the body of the Chinese dragon would starve. They were wrong. In the world of history of power, If you control the gate, you're powerful. But if you control the ingredients, you're God. In August 2023, Beijing pulled the lever on the silicon shield. They imposed strict export restrictions on two obscure but critical elements, gallium and germanium. To the average investor, these sound like trivia. To the Pentagon and the semiconductor industry, they are existential threats. Look at the numbers. China produces 80% of the world's gallium and 60% of its germanium. Gallium isn't just for your LED screen. It's the backbone of next-generation radar systems for the F-35. Germanium is the key to fiber optics and infrared night vision. By weaponizing these materials, China didn't just counterattack, they placed a biological toll on every Western tech company. The message was clear. You don't want us to have the machines? Fine, then you don't get the minerals to build your own. This is a strategic hostage situation. While the US tries to friendshore production to countries like Vietnam or India, those nations still rely on Chinese refineries. You can't build a multi-billion-dollar refinery overnight. It takes a decade. China has a 10-year head start in the dirt. This is the silicon shield. It's a message that the era of globalization is being replaced by the era of resource blackmail. China has realized that the God machine of ASML is just a very expensive pile of scrap metal if the supply of raw minerals stops flowing. Washington brought a scalpel to a fight. Beijing brought a sledgehammer to the entire supply chain. In the halls of Washington, sanctions are seen as a tool of strength, but in the boardrooms of Silicon Valley, they are seen as a suicide pact. By trying to starve the Chinese dragon, the United States has accidentally begun to starve its own golden geese. Let's look at the big three of American chip equipment: Applied Materials, Lam Research, and KLA. These companies don't just sell tools, they sell the future. But there's a catch. China is their largest customer. Before the sanctions, China accounted for nearly 1/3 of their total revenue. When Washington pulled the plug, they didn't just hurt China, they erased tens of billions of dollars in annual sales from the American balance sheet. Look at NVIDIA. To comply with US law, they had to neuter their most powerful AI chips just to sell them to China. The result? Chinese tech giants like Tencent and Alibaba looked at the crippled American hardware, looked at the price tag, and said, "No thank you." They are now pivoting to Huawei's Ascend processors. The US sanctions didn't stop Chinese AI, they just handed Huawei a monopoly on the domestic Chinese market. Washington literally gave its biggest rival a $1 trillion gift by forcing Chinese companies to buy local. The financial logic is brutal. Research and development, R&D, is fueled by cash flow. If American companies lose the Chinese market, they lose the capital they need to build the next generation of chips. Meanwhile, China is pouring $140 billion in state subsidies to close the gap. This is the reverse engineering trap. By isolating China, the US removed the incentive for China to play by the rules. We are witnessing the end of American soft power in tech. Washington thought they were protecting the Silicon throne, but they might have just burned it down. The gatekeepers are losing their gates, and the treasury is running dry.
The war for the God machine is not just another trade dispute. It is the funeral of the world as we knew it. For 30 years, we were told that globalization was inevitable, that a company in the Netherlands using American science and Chinese capital would unite the planet. That dream is dead. What we are witnessing is the birth of technological sovereignty. The world is fracturing into two distinct, incompatible ecosystems. On one side, the Western bloc, clinging to a monopoly that is leaking secrets every single day. On the other, the Chinese fortress,
fueled by a desperate do-or-die capital injection that the West simply cannot match. In the world of history of power, there are no good guys. There are only those who control the flow of information and those who are controlled by it. By trying to lock the gates of progress, Washington didn't stop China. They forced them to build their own world. A world where American software, Dutch optics, and Western IP are irrelevant. The verdict is clear. The light that carves the future is no longer a secret. It has been stolen, deconstructed, and weaponized. The Silicon throne is no longer occupied by a single king. It is a battlefield. ASML may still have the best machines, but China now has the resolve of the desperate. And in the long history of power, the desperate always change the rules of the game. The machines have been opened. The secrets are out. The siege is over. This is history of power.